Hey guys, all right. How's it going? Double Deuce back. Today we're just playing around with a little bit of transmission technology from your HG-p407 and bruiser. So I come up with some ideas here on, those of you who like to create. So stay tuned, and here we go. Okay, everyone. Now, if you see here, we got a bunch of transmissions, and these are basically your the evolution of the bruiser and the early Hilux transmission over here, and the bruiser. We got an HG-p407 and we got the Frankenstein. If you see, the end's taken off the bell on this thing. This is all glued up and everything because I've used this transmission for my first nitro conversion back in the 80s, and it blew it all apart. So as you can see, just the vibration alone, going through the transmission was pretty brutal. And so I was playing with some gearing on this thing. Now, those of you who want to, convert your HG-p407 or bruiser, transmission to a forward and reverse transmission for the nitro, this is what I come up with. Now, there's different ways you can do it. I'm working on this one now, and I'm working on one for the HG-p407 to have a forward and reverse in that if you want to use a nitro, or a one-way brushless setup. It's up to you. So I removed the front cover and the spur gear out of there. Okay. Now I had inside this thing, there is the spur gear has another gear, like a step gear attached to it that runs the lower gear, and it also rides on a shaft. And so basically I took this off and come up with some gearing in here. It's not finished yet. I'm waiting for more parts. Seems like that's all I do lately is wait. And I've been waiting for about 2 weeks now. That's why I haven't put a video up. So I had all kinds of projects planned for this week, and none of them came through, so we're on this. So anyways, it's a simple setup. Basically, you have a power shaft coming in with two spur gears on it, two pinions, I should say, and two spur gears here, and one I have not added yet is going to be a counter gear here that's going to be attached to this one. Now, as you see inside there's lots of space in between this and that, because this gear is not going to touch that gear. The counter gear is going to go from this gear to this gear, and that's going to give you your reverse. It's going to reverse the rotation of the transmission. And then I made like a slide collar on here that will slide in and out of this spur gear here. Was actually, this one down in here was actually for the Traxxas Revo. This is a 42 tooth Revo spur gear, and it's a mod 1, and I had just over drilled the holes in it inside it, and getting a light on that in there to see the holes I over drilled in there. But maybe not good lighting here, but you can see, there we go. I over drilled the holes. There's a series of holes around there. Then I came up with a hex collar on the shaft, and I used it's off the Trail Finder too. It's the extension shaft that goes from your 2-speed tranny to your transfer case. I had one of those, and I slid that over the shaft, and I had mounted a spur gear on the back of it because the center shaft in the transmission has to spin freely. And then I just put some bearings in it and put a small shaft out here to meet them in the middle, to basically support it. But like I say, when you look at it, it's a simple setup. It's just, I would like to make it smaller if that's the case. If you get on Engine DIY website, they do sell a small forward and reverse gearbox, and it's like $85-90 for the gearbox. Okay, I'm gonna do a little quick teardown of this thing and try to squeeze it into video somewhere. Now, I took two plates, basically the same. I took a piece of just 5mm rod to make my jack shaft here. I'm going to take this off because I'm going to tear it down. Now, how I did this was like this. Okay. Now, as you can see, on what I did was you see there's bearings in there, and they're flanged. So I just basically drilled a hole the size of the bearing and slid it through and let the flange hold it. And this right here, when it sets up against the pinion gear will hold the bearing in place, so you don't have to worry about countersinking or whatever. And if you want to, you can take a Dremel tool and make some slices in your main shaft and put some E-clips on there. Now, I wanted to get more detail of how I did this here. Now, as you can see, there's the back plate. It's got a big hole in it. These are identical plates. I just put them all together like so. And I put two pieces together and drilled all the holes the same. So, you have two pieces and it's just simply done. Now, the complex part is here, okay? Now, these are, like I say, this is your Revo spur gear. And if you notice, it fits right inside here because this is actually a bearing will fit right in there with no problem if you wanted to, experiment more. Now, I made this thing here. It's a shift collar. You see, I welded it together. And I basically took 5mm rod and I drilled holes in two washers. And the washers are big enough. And I had taken, I believe, it was a 11/16 socket. It's a 12-point socket. And I just cut a piece off of it. I stuck it in the drill and used a Dremel tool and turned the drill on and just cut it. And I cut a small section out. I slid the two washers over it. And with the pins that I had welded in there. Now, you don't have to use something like this if you don't want to. If you buy, you can get online, you can buy the top shaft off the HG-p407 transmission. Or if you have a broken one laying around, tear it apart and use the hexes. Because here's what I use. I use just a regular, it's actually a fitting for a tube. And I just put it in there. But if you look at it, you see I just drilled a hole right through it and put a small grub screw in there, and I ground a flat spot in this collar. This is the collar for the Trail Finder 2. And the cool thing is it's the same exact size as a bearing. I believe a 5x8, and it just it'll spin on there, and you need these two to spin freely. See, this one spins freely too. And then basically what I did on the back here, I had a pinion gear. I don't know where I got this from. This is an old Tamiya gear. But anyways, it has like a set collar in there. And I just kind of ground the shaft down a little bit and squeezed it in there and put a little solder on it. Is what I did. Now, the reason I did it this way is because everything has to float freely. And so basically, this here and your collar that I made here would take the place of your spur gear, that goes in the transmissions over here, This would be your spur gear. Now, by doing this, with these floating and having one gear on here, it's a direct forward drive. And when I have the three gears over here, it reverses the rotation of the shift collar when I pull it forward and lets these ride freely. You see what I'm saying? When these ride freely, now it's going in reverse. So it's a simple setup, but I wish I could make it a little thinner because, like I say, the room is kind of limited to these frames, and you start adding stuff. But then I had made this is how I made the shift collar. It's just a piece of thin aluminum. I just made it into like a fork. I drilled a hole in it down here. I took a piece of brake tubing. It's just your fitting off the edge of a piece of 1/4-inch brake tubing. And I used brake tubing as my spacer, so I could space in between the two pieces here, like so. You know what I mean? So when you put the spacer in there, it acts as a shift collar that glides over the spacer. So it works pretty good. And so you can go from, you know, forward to reverse without a problem, and you just hook up a small ball on here and hook it to your third servo to have your you know, forward and reverse on the thing. And like I say, I use brake tubing quite a bit because it's cheap, and you know, if you mess it up, you cut another piece off. Especially you get like a 60-inch piece of 3/16, quarter-inch, 5/16, and 3/8 brake tubing. You'll find you'll be able to use that quite a bit in the hobby for scratch builds, roll cages, you know. And if you get the non-coated stuff, this is non-coated, it's just galvanized. You can sand this off, and you can actually solder this stuff together with solder, or if you have access to a welder, you can weld it. But now this is the coated stuff, okay, because this is a piece of 3/16. I need a smaller one for the very top up here where the gears went. The you know, my power shaft come through. I needed a little space there. But you'll have to sand this coating off before you do any soldering or anything. So, and they do make the copper nickel line, which you can solder to it real easy. You can't weld it, you know, because it's like, say it's copper and nickel together. It doesn't weld very well. But, you know, it's a simple setup for that. But anyways, let's get back to the other, what we were talking about a minute ago there, and we'll go from there. So, you know, the playing with the different, you know, series of transmission through the years, you know, and the gearing and all that stuff. These have a very small, you know, spur gear inside these here. This is your early Hilux and Blazin' Blazer transmission, you know, 3-speed. And, you know, it has a small spur gear, first the 1.9 wheels, and then, of course, you know, if you see the difference just in the size of the case here between, this is your bruiser that runs the 2.2 wheels, so it's got a bigger spur gear in it, and they come up with a heavier motor because of the strain the truck was under. And that's my phone blowing up because it's Thanksgiving Day and everybody's hitting me up. Now I come up with this really wacky idea. What if you wanted to make this into a 6-speed transmission? How would you do it? You know, I mean, it just dawned on me one day. It can be simply done by if you get yourself a you know, a step bell clutch with 2 gears on it, and you go and buy the it's basically like a nitro buggy transmission. This thing was like $13 on eBay, and it's a 2-speed. And now if you run this jack shaft that's in the center into here like so, and eliminate this thing, and then put your 2-speed clutch bell on there, now you're going to have, your first gear is going to have first and second. Your second gear is going to have 2 speeds. You see what I'm saying? And your third gear is going to have 2 speeds. All because of this clutch. And it depends on your throttle response of when it shifts, and it's totally adjustable. So you can shift it early, you can shift it late, you can shift and have it so don't shift at all. But if you would say you didn't want the forward reverse, and you could put that in here and attach it to a floating collar with a spur gear on the end of it, and come up, like I just used regular hobby aluminum to make a mounting plate. Once you put that in there, now you've got a, say even an HG-p407. You know, seriously, it's easily done. You could actually bring it up here and put in, you know, a 5mm pinion gear that fits your, you know, your teeth for that, and set it in there. You won't have a reverse, but now your HG-p407 transmission will be a 6-speed, because every speed, first, second, third, will have 2 speeds additional, all depending on, it'll shift automatically with this. So, you know, it's food for thought. And for those of you who wonder how it's going to fit in there, this is your bruiser and HG-p407 frame. What I did was I just moved the center cross member back to the last hole on the frame and the first hole on the cross member itself, just to see, you know, just to give it some room to fit. So, because these are limited as far as space and twisting and all that stuff. So if you would happen to put this in here, back here now your 540 can motor would be over here behind your shocks now, instead of, you know, normally where it would normally be, like, you know, way up here. So it gives you some room, and that way you can, you know, have to play with some drive shafts, lengths and stuff, but you would be able to put this in here and still have room for a nitro motor. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, food for thought. And, you know, like, and for those of you who want to convert it to a nitro, now, of course, there's no brakes there now, right? But that's where you get the capo brake system, and you can retrofit this right to your nitro car. And, you know, you run some cables with a servo, and, you know, so your throttle and your brake servo on a regular nitro car, you could hook them up to this normally, and you wouldn't have to have 15 servos. So, anywho, like I say, it's, you know, wanted to throw the idea out there, and, you know, see what you guys thought of it. And I know a lot of people aren't into nitro, which is cool. I'm cool with that. I mean, because I had really put my nitro stuff away, and until the Toyin FS 100 methanol motor came out, and I started doing some playing with that. I am going to have an upcoming video on that, some upgrade hop up things you can do to that motor, and so that'll be down probably one of my next upcoming videos. But I have to tear it out of my other truck, because I want to do some reconfiguration on that. But I want to run it a few times, because I took this week off to do you know, a kit build for you guys, and the kit didn't show up because the manufacturer delayed the shipping on it. So I don't see that happening until you know, this time next month. So around Christmas time, maybe I'll have a build series for you guys then, and we'll take it from there. So anyways, I got the buzzard in the oven up there, and I got to go up there and kind of monitor a little bit and get ready to have some dinner for Thanksgiving. And you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you later, man. Adios.